phase one much more quickly at a much lower interest expense, and then allow for that many more years of additional dollars from the next solar array to be squirreled away. So I think that's kind of where as I'm listening to everything that's being said, I think there's areas we agree, and there's maybe areas we're just not quite ready yet, but we shouldn't be paralyzed by what we don't have clarity on. Shouldn't necessarily paralyze us from getting done what we know needs to be done to address needs. So I don't know if it's an easy conversation to go back to Keller and say, look, we have too many options is too many options. Yep. And but we know we need a new public works facility, and we know we needed some additional, and whether some additional office space for EMS or any other entities gets built onto the public works building, or whether we keep that not a public space, those are the things I think we need to channel in on a little bit. And I think Keller's doing a good job.
Cool.
And for the $2,500 price tag to be this invested, and I had a conversation separately with Devin on something else I'm involved in, and he made a comment to me that really stuck, that like they can't do every project, and he's happy to be involved in conversations on projects that ultimately he might never do anything on, because it's important to him that organizations and everything, people get to where they want to be, and whether that's with Keller or someone else, that's fine. I thought that was that's maybe a little salesman-like, but at the end of the day, that's what they're giving us. They're giving us a lot of resources, and we just need to give them a little bit more refined guidance.
To add to your point, Adam, when you go back to the being fiscally responsible part, I think maybe seriously looking at it in stages for the town's folks that are going to come in and be voting on it and looking at it, they're going to see that maybe a phased progression is a much more planned and responsible way to go. I still go back to some of those people are just blatantly obnoxious about being
You're
upset.
Gonna have that. You're going to have that about anything you try to do.
Absolutely. But they were just really in shock. And so I don't necessarily think the phase idea is a bad idea.
It's a great idea, but how much money fiscally do we put into this building if we do keep it? That's another question.
Yeah, I don't think we know that number. I don't know that we know the full maintenance picture. If we literally did nothing to the current town hall.
We gotta heat it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Furnaces are down.
But what's that number relative to
That's a cost that we're already
budgeted for?
I have $8,000 that I got in an insurance claim for the furnaces. So, I mean, we got $8,000 that we could start with, but we're spending $1,000 a month to heat it in the winter. I mean, that's at minimum heat. So we really do have to do something if we're gonna keep it.
I agree that we have to do something if we decide to keep it.
Yeah.
I also agree that our priority at this point is probably the truck shop.
I agree.
So I like the phase.
Yeah.
And we've already got that $1,000 a month winter
Yeah.
heating
Over.
in our budget.
Yeah.
We know what that
Yeah,
costs us
that is a
already.
fact.
You know, so we're budgeted for that if we don't get to it. I do like the phases. I mean, I don't think there should be very much time between the phases. You know what I mean? But I think if we start with something that we know is a necessity, like that building's falling apart, the truck shop's falling apart. I don't think we need a wash bay. We don't need all our wants, that's for sure. Or a paint. I think paint booth was one of
Yeah,
the
that
ones
was crossed off right away.
right. I know multi-state dealerships that won't put paint booths in.
Yeah.
So,
Practicality wise, and I don't know if this is doable or not, but you know, people have different buildings and houses all over the state, and they shut them down in the winter. They turn off the water and they don't heat them, and they shut them down. If we're not going to use the town hall except for the voting, and that certain time that comes to voting, is it reasonable to just shut her down?
It might
I mean,
be.
we vote in November.
It might be.
By November, you could shut it down, turn off the water,
Drain
lock
the
the water,
water
and not
lines.
heat it.
We'll keep
It
it at
might
40
be.
degrees. And
right.
Yeah, keep it low.
You'd have to bring it back up in what,
Well, you
February?
have to keep it heated a little bit just to ensure the structure doesn't.
Right.
the
But you
integrity of
could
the
go
structure.
really low and
Yeah.
shut the water off.
Well, and we do, I think we keep it at, what, 50?
I know it's 55 or 58,
55?
somewhere in there.
Okay, I
I don't
think
really
so.
remember, but what heats the kitchen
Oh,
EMS?
because the.
Yeah, I think the EMS has separate heat. But,
So the furnaces that were on the roof,
Yeah.
furnace air conditioning,
yeah,
the
there's one
floor
left,
is strictly hall.
yes.
And then there's a furnace in the basement that does the rest.
Yeah, I think so.
Multiple furnaces.
Yeah. But,
So if you wouldn't replace or do anything with the, shut the doors in the wintertime, you're still looking at $800 to heat the kitchen EMS toilet?
yeah, but the kitchen, we would kick out the renter. So it would just be the toilets and the E EMS.
What is the reason for kicking her out?
Well, it keep the.
Over, that's been a sore spot around here literally ever since she moved in. Why do you want her out?
I don't. I mean, she
Isn't
saved the building twice. Once we had
When you- yeah,
a water
right.
leak and,
When
but what
her
I'm saying is,
rent is definitely helping out with electric and heat.
yes, yes, I agree with that. But if we should do something with that building,
Well, certainly.
then she's on notice. I mean, her lease is month to month at this point. But I'm keeping her informed too of what's going on because I want to give her as much notice if we decide to either tear down the building, remodel the building, shut off the heat, that type of thing.
But no
I
matter
want
what,
her-
she's
yeah.
gonna be affected
Yeah.
100%.
So I want her to be in the loop too.
But it's been, every time I hear it, we don't want her there. Now, and I never could understand why you didn't want her there because she's
Yeah, I'm not
literally
sure
keeping
that,
the building open.
yeah, I'm not sure that that's the case. I don't have a problem with it, but if we do something with that building,
Yeah, or
that
if we-
may affect her.
Well, certainly,
So
I
that's why
understand that.
I,
But, Christie, to your point, I agree with you 100%. The old bill, it's hard for me to say,
I know it. It's hard.
but it has to come down. To me, it has to come down. And I think we look at the priority. Like Jim said, to go with something, the Public Works building needs to be replaced and work on that. Do a fine study on what they need and wants are two different things here, and we have to get real creative on that side. There's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't have to happen. Not to say it's nice,
What
but
did you plan for this building? This building
actually, there's a
stays-
lot of different options here. Putting partitions in there or partition the whole thing off and make office space out of this one.
Out of this part?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the additions on here would be a new administrative type building, more office area, the meeting room.
So
This
you're
meeting
looking
room
at
would,
basically just a hall?
That what
Because
we
I'm a
have
little
been
confused
talking
with-
about. Yeah,
yeah.
that 2,100 square feet that we
Just
were
the
talking
new
was just a
hall.
hall.
Okay.
And that was.
Not putting, because it says like admin, not putting administration over there or anything.
Well,
no.
no, the admin would be added to this building and then on addition to that
Okay,
would be the
okay.
hall.
Got it.
so
Couple designs that can be.
Christine,
Was the planning anyway.
speaking to the EMT thing,
Yeah.
so if we do tear that building down, we need
Oh,
somewhere
here
for
we
them to
Here we
go.
are. Oh,
So we were gonna bring them over here, and this would be the EMTs, this
okay.
part here. And then, their storage would be where my office is. And so, at this point, that office is shared by the building inspector, the zoning administrator, and the
Yeah. So, yeah.
chairman. So, if we add on the 3 more offices as we had talked about, one would be for the chairman and the supervisors. It'd be kind of like a conference room, but it would double as an office. And then the other office was for the building inspector and the zoning administrator and the constable. And then the third one, I think that was, I don't remember what the third one was for.
Wasn't that for the safe room because you needed more your record
Yeah, that's,
safety
you're
room?
correct, because we were going through the safe room to
Right.
get to it. So, yes, you are correct. So that was what the administrative part of it was.
Mhm. And then on the addition to
And
that
then
was
the-
then the hall.
And then the hall, yes. And then at the last meeting, we discussed adding a basement under part of the building for record keeping, so that it would be, you know, somewhere safe. And so that added a stairway going down and part of a basement.
Not to challenge the EMT stuff at all, but how often is somebody there that they do something in a room this big? If they have meetings, could they have it in whatever meeting room we establish?
Well, that's what, yeah, but if, I mean, in the meantime, if we're doing, whatever we do,
Oh, you mean we would need a place for
yeah,
them?
we need
in
a
the
place
meantime?
for them.
Yeah, totally understand.
And to be honest, we actually had a neighbor that was looking to maybe sell, and we really investigated that a lot to make it a separate building for the
Christmas building,
EMTs.
yeah.
And it turned out that it wasn't in their best interest to sell, which kudos to them. They did all the homework,
Yeah.
you know, and, but at some time in the future, they may change their mind, and they said they'd let us be the first to know. So that may be a space. But in the meantime, the EMTs have an additional paramedic, I believe he is, that also is a grant writer.
Yeah,
And he
I remember
actually
that
wrote a
conversation.
grant to get an EMT building. Am I correct in stating that? In Pittsville?
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
same one. as
So,
Pittsville
he is very aware of the needs here, and he's working with Kathy, and that's kind of how it's all coming together. So I really believe the EMTs is a temporary thing in this space. But after they're done with it, it would become a conference room or even a smaller meeting room.
Well, sure.
So,
Are there any other, I'm just gonna throw this out there and I don't wanna get too off track, but are there any other properties that are located in this, you know, in a small radius to this facility that would be a target that, I mean, cause it's so expensive to build new.
Well, the thing that I was gonna say is, this person you just suggested, wouldn't it be best to get a first right of refusal?
That'd be another great point, Mick.
I mean, that's what I would do.
I'm confident that that would.
Yeah, but first right of refusal is, we're paying $500 for first right of refusal. They can't sell
All
it.
it does is require that they give you the choice,
I'll put his pen down so he's ready.
which is usually it gives them the power of knowing they got somebody at the ready. If
Yep.
they, I mean, that's not a bad business decision.
I think we should pursue again
Yeah.
the neighbor.
But that's exactly what we're talking about. But I don't think we need that first right of refusal.
Adam, if we phase this and put you on the spot a little bit, would interest be a wash then? I mean, it gets more expensive every year to build. So would we save anything or? would-
You can absolutely, with tackling a smaller amount of principal borrowed, you can shorten the amortization drastically, probably improve the interest rate in addition to just servicing the debt more quickly. And it's not, at the end of the day, sometimes rate and amount borrowed doesn't have nearly the impact as time
Sure.
on these mortgages. Regardless if it's personal, business, or municipal, it's the length of the loan that really gets you on interest. And so when we're talking about a long-term financial obligation, those first few years are really heavy on interest. But if you can do something in a phase where the money can start coming in, and you can take 75% of that money coming in and hammer out that debt in 5 years, you'll save hundreds of thousands, and that can all be forecasted and projected down to the penny.
Okay.
And it's valuable information to know. And that's, I mean, I can put, if this group wants to see any hypothetical, and that's not to say that there's any number of institutions and places that the money can come from, but they're all going to the terms are going to be the terms. And so we can see that, and we can make good decisions on that. And I think that's another reason to tackle this in a phased approach. I think we can we can find a way to offset the potential increases of phase two.
I like the public works idea, doing that, and
Seeing where we're at.
then,
So, oh, that went good, or, oh, we gotta rethink that.
Okay, let's say we go with public works, we build, that's our thing, we're gonna do that. We're getting back to the hall, we still need the hall in our interim,
In the
you know,
process.
during until we get into this phase, we still need the hall.
But do we? Because look at all the different towns that vote in the local high school, or they vote in the local,
Okay.
maybe we worked with Outposts in their building and.
They get $5,000 a night, you know
But-
Well,
that, right?
yeah,
No, but I'm
maybe,
just saying, if-
they
if-
do, but
do, but
do
maybe
they
they
have to
would-
get that from us?
Yeah,
I
maybe
mean,
they
there's
would,
other things,
to a
like
community,
Yeah.
allow us to
Gordy-
use it.
Gordy mentioned it too, Alwanzel's got buildings.
Yes.
We've got a couple of building right over here, I don't think has ever been used. You know, just, it's there, I mean, it'd be kinda odd and
Yeah, transportation of
inconvenient,
voting equipment,
But-
voting records and stuff. like
right,
that.
But I think you could.
But
make it
even,
work
we've
with interim.
even said that the early voting, if this was utilized the way it should have been, early voting would have been so convenient right here. You know, and, okay, for a year or 2 years, we suffer a little bit. It's inconvenient. I mean, it's like remodeling your house. I mean, your bathroom, you gotta wash your face in the sink, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets to the point. But getting back to building the Public Works building, the options that we've got out of the, 7 different things that I have here, they pretty much all, the ones that are really catch my eye are in the same location that the hall is in. And to me, the one I've got, option 2, is the only one that's really convenient. What was the other one?
Convenient as far as working around what we have.
Working around what we have, yes. And option 3 is another one, but that one takes out the town
I have them
hall.
all on my computer, so I don't have to worry. Dan, can you pass those around? Because I have mine on my computer, so just pass the 2 so Patty can see them too and just get a brief. You said 2 and 3?
Well,
There's one,
he's got it here.
Keller's never, I'm not sure. I don't know that Keller's ever looked at this from the perspective of that maybe all we would do is Public Works
Right,
building
yes.
and maybe some minimally additional admin space, but not a big new admin building with a big new voting room. and a big- So they've never been asked to, I mean, they could maybe very quickly come up with a new option that would give you something, and maybe not, and maybe we want 2 options. Maybe we want one option where the existing town hall gets torn down, put the Public Works where it makes the most sense with that approach, and maybe we get a second option of leaving that existing, and where would you put the Public Works? I mean, maybe it's already in there, but
Yeah, I'm looking
does
at,
change some things when,
at the option 3 and option D both have where the town hall would be down and a Public Works building put up. So for those of you that are trying to look, do you have D and 3 there?
No, but option 2 is at the town hall now. Option 2.
As far as having enough room for voting, like say we tear the big hall down and build a truck shop. While we're building that truck shop, we can't vote in the town hall that's tore down, and we probably can't vote in the truck shop that's being built.
This is,
But I've seen municipalities
us right now.
vote
This
in
one,
a
so
room,
this would be-
municipalities bigger than
So
this,
this one, yeah.
vote in a room
Yeah,
this
so
size.
it's with that torn down. that
Now,
one, so
it
it's
didn't,
like-
this one
it
is
wasn't
still
very good for the resident because they were standing on the sidewalk
right,
outside in
and
the
if
rain.
yep, that's really tough.
But they got, voting was
got the
done.
job done. Yeah.
Voting was done.
Thank you.
it wasn't ideal.
You could put
And I don't ever want it
pop
to
up
be
tent
a
too, to
permanent
give
thing.
them some
you know?
shelter for the
Well,
lines.
Grand Rapids isn't that much bigger.
No, and they vote in the truck shop, fire shop. Yeah, the fire shop. They just pull the fire trucks out and they vote and back them back in.
With their grandfather, so building code.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of my list of stuff that I wanna talk about.
Oh
is-
boy,
Yeah, exactly.
I'll shut up.
Everybody that says something, it's add to what I wanna say, so. I don't wanna go last, but I might be. If we build a new truck shop, why wouldn't it be up to the most current fire code?
It would be. It has to be.
So then why couldn't we vote in it?
But the fire code changes depending on the use.
Yeah, it doesn't depend, so
It
a
depends.
truck doesn't need to be as safe as a person. That's
Right.
putting it very simply.
Yep.
And an
Or
employee
exit
is different
doors.
than a public resident coming
Yes.
in.
And
Two full-time employees that standing in the truck shop or working in the truck shop are different than residents coming into vote.
Right,
Yeah.
this is
In
considered more like an occupation, or occupancy.
but that is a good
Versus,
question to ask
you
Keller.
Yeah, it would be interesting to
went
know
back.
what the actual financial difference is, because if we go away from building a whole hall,
Agreeably.
it may be worth the money to have those special upgrades, and then we build a truck shop and we have our voting taken care of.
And
In
we
the
need
first
to have
phase.
a room to store the equipment, the voting equipment. That's the only thing that would be added to that I can see.
Where is it stored right now?
Over in the hall, that's why the building has to be heated.
Got it.
Stage right.
Yeah,
State right,
most,
okay, got it.
the tallies things are in the vault here.
Okay.
Yeah, those, yeah.
The counting machines, got it.
There was
See,
something
and
else.
that, they have to be transported back and forth, which is not conducive to their,
Sure, they're, yeah, dialing them in. Okay, Josh, what else?
Yeah, keep
And that's where if you go out to like the outpost to do it, it would get pretty difficult,
Right.
because those machines aren't light, we've got several of them that,
The floor would be sloped in the garage.
No, it wasn't your fault.
I think that was part of it too, tripping
Yeah.
hazards with.
The slopes, there would have to be grates in the floor and the floor would have to be sloped, but I'm sure the grates could be covered. And
Well, and
the
the
sloping of the floor,
The size of the grate
Yeah,
we can make it minimal.
we could make it. Right.
Well, I mean.
And
other
it's
municipalities
not,
do
just
that.
because the floor is pitched
Sloped.
to the drain doesn't mean that people are gonna be
Right.
walking
It's
beside
quite
it.
a pitch, it's quite a pitch.
It is
Yeah.
a,
But,
it is a
yeah,
good
you're
sized
right.
pitch, but
but-
it's,
Keep in mind, when you're talking to somebody who's 85, 90 years old, walking with a cane,
right.
a little bit of a pitch is not always easy for them to manage.
But let's, yeah, I think that's something we should,
It's worth looking into,
I
and other
agree.
communities are doing it, so.
I agree.
So in the interest of listening to everybody, one person in the room hasn't said hardly anything yet today. So, no, Rob, I'm gonna go last. Rob, go ahead.
Well-
Let's hear from you.
You know, when I've been to all the meetings except for the very first one. And when this started out, it was all these new buildings. We talked about money, it was $3.2 million we were gonna
yeah.
invest into this. And in the end of the 20 years, we're gonna have 5 million into it and paying $2 million in interest. So when I sat down and started thinking about all this, first of all, we have to sell this to the people outside that door. We can talk all we want, but this has to be something that is palatable to those people out there. And we have to make sure that our numbers work with that. And I think people are gonna be in shock to begin with spending money on a new hall. But to tear down the old one right out of the gate would be a real shock to our elderly people here. They would negate anything that we're doing in moving forward. So my thought was, and back to you, we should maybe do this in phases, just so that it isn't such a shock to our community. And on our pocketbook, I don't know how we can save money for a couple of years up. We have money earmarked, like Chase, you were mentioning, save up for a couple, 3 years and pay most of the principal down right away. I don't know the costs, because we would have to redo all of this, but I do agree that we do need to do some work with the truck shop. And what I thought for a phase one would be is anything we do, we should do so that we can add on and make bigger, if we have to in the future, and not, let's just do things, not little steps, but steps that work for everybody, and a little bit of room for the future. The truck shop, the public works, I made my list of the things that I think we need, and it's just my list, but all, you know, the mechanical area, the parts area, the entry, the break room, the tool room, the uniform area, the restroom, their little office. I would be okay with a wash bay and 2 truck bays to start out with. Now, that ends up being just about exactly half the square footage of the 6 bays that we come up with. The truck bays are 18 by 50. So I don't want to cut that building in half, but I think if we work on, we might still have to put some money in this other building for cold storage, to use it for cold storage, some of the rusty pillars or whatever we have to do. I think we have to put some money into that old building too for cold storage. But I think 3 stalls is doable, and looking at the size of the bays that Keller has drawn up, they are 18 by 50. The 2 truck bays without the wash bay would be 1,800 square feet, and that's getting pretty close to a votable area that we could use to vote. I don't know what the cost of that would be. They need the mechanical room, they need a furnace. No matter what they build, they're gonna need a mechanical room, parts, a break room, uniform, restroom, office. They're gonna need all those necessities. Can we get by with 3 bays? And I'd like to, I guess I would like to see the cost of that building, what that would be. I think we need a lot more office space here. I don't know really what that answer is. The original office space we're gonna add on to here was 1,868 square feet.
In the parts, I'm sorry, in the parts room, in the tool room, where are you talking about office space?
No, office
He
here.
shifted
on
to
the-
admin
You're going
building.
to a different building, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
I'm on
Okay.
this, I think we need office
Okay,
space here.
sorry, Rob.
I do, 1,868, I guess is how they figured it, and it was all itemized as to who needed what, and I don't question those numbers. I see that there's, the mechanical room for that is in the basement, and there's basement storage. Is that,
The idea of the basement storage was to replace, so they have some place to store the records that are currently in the basement of
Okay.
that hall.
so the cost of staying on top of the ground versus basement for storage, I mean, if they have 750 square foot figured in for the mechanical room and the basement storage. Now, if we kept 750 feet above ground, is that cheaper than digging a basement and putting a basement in? I don't know, but that's just a question I have as to the basement. I do think we need more office space added onto here, and again, as long as everything's built so that we can keep moving on, and I'm with you, okay, every time you add on, it's gonna cost so much more because we're waiting longer and not doing it all in the first thing, but I just think doing it in phases and doing it fiscally responsibly, like a normal person would do, moving forward with that addition on their house, and they wouldn't put up a big pole building and an addition on their house. They would do that in phases also. I just believe that that's a more sellable, easy thing for us to discuss with the residents and move forward with in meetings and such. So that's what I came up with, and I think at some point we should just start writing down our commons. What our common, if most of us think that, okay, we need this, but maybe we can do that, we can get somewhere if we start coming up with some common ideas. But to shock the community by tearing down that building and building all kinds of new buildings all at once and going in debt, I don't want to be at that public hearing.
I have a question, Rob.
Yep.
How did you come up with 3 bays? I mean, could you get all the equipment that they have listed in those 3 bays?
Well, everything's
He said
in
2 bays.
Well, I should have wash bay and then two bays.
2 bays and a wash bay?
Yeah, but they have everything inside right now, correct?
Right.
Okay. So everything's
And then we have a
inside.
new truck coming, but will all of that fit in there then?
Well, that's why he was talking about using the other hall for cold storage for the time being.
We're still gonna use, I was
Oh.
thinking we're still gonna keep that old building for.
public
Oh, I
works.
thought we'd put the new building with the old building in. I know that's not on any of those plans that you got in front of you, but doesn't that make more sense because of the access to the highway and the access to the rest of the,
Because it kind of depends on what happens with the hall.
true that.
Well, I thought everything, all of
All of the.
plans that
are
we've
the
got
way.
is using the old building for
It's
cold
Cold
storage.
storage, you can't see
I
tearing
mean,
that
pretty
down.
much, we've never really considered
What's
tearing
wrong
that
with,
building down.
what's wrong with our pole building south of that?
They do
Nothing.
use it.
That cold storage is fine.
That's in better
Yeah.
shape than our truck shop.
Yeah, we really
And it was
didn't
never
need
thought of to
cold
pull that
storage.
down either.
No,
That's what I
but
thought the
could
last
that be,
We didn't.
could that
I'm
be
the one who brought that
rearranged
in.
for cold storage?
Well, but it was,
Always needed.
it was
They do.
brought up at our last meeting that the Public Works folks said we didn't need more cold storage. We
Right.
don't need it.
Not
Well,
more,
I-
but
I
if
can't-
we have it, let's keep it.
No, I'm just saying we don't need to build some more.
Yeah, I can't really see that
This is,
we need it either. There's a couple of pieces of equipment that sit outside, but I think with revamping of the white building, that everything could go in there. I don't know, do the plows need to be undercover? I mean, there are.
Out of the
some
weather
things-
would be for
Would be
hydraulic
nice for
hoses and
hydraulic
cylinders and
hose,
stuff
sure.
like that. Yes,
Absolutely.
out of the weather would be great, but that pole building that is just fine would, I mean, a little bit of rearranging in there, we could get a lot of stuff in.
They do use it though.
Yeah.
But everything that's in our
There's
shop right
signs
now
and stuff.
would be in our new shop, you know? So basically, the cold storage that we're talking about is what little bit we have outside right now,
Right.
which I think would all fit in that
That other.
good pole building that's back there for cold storage now.
If you guys wanted to, you know, when we
That's just
first
the
built
demo.
Greenways, we did 4 bays,
This is good.
just like you guys got. They're about 16 or 18 feet wide.
I'm good.
14 by 14 doors, but I made a mistake. I should have went 16.
Yep.
Which I see you did. But if you wanna look, you could go over to Greenways. That's what we have. We have drive-through bays. We went with 4. You know, you could drive right through. And then we added 5 more drive-throughs. But all that same size, I would say go with 2 drive-throughs and make sure that last beam you can expand later on.
Right.
If you decide to go with more bays at a future time.
Carl, did you get
I
a
had
chance?
a comment for Rob. I was at that meeting when we were talking about basement, and I think it was because of the square footage. If you put that stuff upstairs, the square footage would exceed and need fire
Then you
suppression.
need fire suppression.
So by putting the basement, then the square footage was within the limits of not requiring fire suppression.
And the mechanicals could go in the basement, which would eliminate square footage up above too.
Yeah.
but you're,
I mean, there was a lot of advantages of putting in a basement
Yeah.
under that one particular add-on. I mean, for minimal cost.
Yeah, it's also a lot easier to do a fire rated room down there.
Yeah.
So they can, the records are in a higher fire rated room versus on a main floor.
Another thing is the building here is spec'd out 50 by 100, and again, this first book we got gives all the equipment that needs to be in the building, but the biggest one we've got is 34 foot, the 3 dump trucks. I mean, the pickup truck's only 19 feet, but we're gonna have 50 feet of building, so there's a lot of storage space. There's 30 feet of storage space in front of the bucket truck's 20 feet, the wood chipper's 12. We've got a lot of, if we're going 50-foot building, we still do have a lot of storage. I mean, you want a workbench and all kinds of room around that, I get that, but the building that we're building is 50 foot deep, and that's a lot of extra room.
Is that 34-foot truck with salt spreader in?
That must be what, I'm
I
guessing
believe
that's
that's
with
with
the
the
plows and.
Is,
it's in the book.
I believe it's with the plow
that's what-
I
attachment.
got it right here.
So Rob, one thing you mentioned is not having an idea what a smaller public works building would potentially cost. You mentioned that maybe it would, what you were identifying as needs would be maybe half the space of the 7,000 plus square feet that the public works.
Public Works was 7,100, and then all the essentials, the entry, the tool, the uniform, restroom, office, parts, mechanical room, all of that, plus 3 bays was 3,484 square.
So there is a bit of a cost breakdown dated 5/1/25 that shows that the ground up public workspace at that time was projected at 7,700 square feet, 73, and that a pre-engineered or precast figure for that space was 1.75 million. And so doing the math on that, that's about $225 a square foot. Now I know you can't scale that. That changes a bit. It moves off that needle, but there's no reason to say that whether you take 250 a square foot or 260 a square foot, pick a number slightly up, maybe 10% higher, 15% higher for a smaller building. We can get to a rough idea without even Keller telling us that, hey, if we can get this public works building down to 4,500 square feet, maybe that's the compromise. Then you can go, 250 a square foot off 4,500 and come up with a figure that it's going to be. You're not going to be talking 3 or 4 million. You're going to be, for that phase, and there's other costs. There's soft costs and things in any proposal, but that public works building is probably the cheapest price per square foot of all the space we were talking about, just because of how it's built.
Did you just do the math?
And how many square feet? We just used a number like 5,000. Right?
I had 3,484 with 3 bays and then all of everything else that they wanted, parts, mechanical.
I'm speculating because I haven't talked to the guys at all, but I think if they had 5 bays and a wash bay in the initial interviews to try to get them down to 3, I know we're trying to be responsible, but yeah, I think phase 1, if it addresses current and that next 5 to 10 years, I think is smart. So I guess I'm thinking maybe plan for 4 bays total. Cut 2 of the 6 that I heard instead of cutting it all the way in half. I think if I were saying, hey, this is what we want and need, and then somebody comes back to me and says, we get half, I'd be like, dang, what? I don't know. I'm just playing a little devil's advocate that maybe instead of 50 by 100, maybe it's 50 by 80.
Maybe it's 40 by 80. Maybe it's not 50 foot deep. I don't.
Right, but 40 by 80
if that's a good use of our space or not.
Well, our current public works, they have storage shelves. You're only talking 8 feet on either end of that truck.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a lot of space.
No, there isn't.
So 40 by 80 is
3,200.
3,200. 50
Plus-
by 80 is 4,000.
Yes.
So 4,000 square feet times.
But that's just, remember now, the proposed public works building has 50 by 100 in the plan for 5,000 square feet, but then all these additional rooms that add to that number. So
Yeah, you got
if you're talking
2,500 square feet in the public works office area supposedly.
right, so my gut feeling is if you were to trim the fat on this 7,100, you're going to get down best case scenario to somewhere in the 4,500 to 5,200. It's just even that might be aggressive.
And we're talking about if we would happen to use it for voting, this is only with 1 unisex bathroom. So we'd have to add 2 bathrooms and they have to be based on the square footage of that open space as to how many stalls you have to have.
Well, we're not. Okay, go. Sorry. Sorry.
No,
That was my fault. My brain just fired away.
go ahead. What were you
No. Well, there's nothing definitive that we're going to use this public works building for voting yet at this point. We haven't. So we can't. I don't know. We just have to be careful from trying to make decisions on that fact. We don't know if that's fact or not. And Chase is eager, and I think
I do have one comment here. What I really think you need to look at is the activities that they're going to be doing in the winter. That's the time your equipment's going to be seeing its most problems from being stored outside. And if we're looking at, so we've got plowing that happens in the winter, we need the loader to load sand. We're trying to get them to do more brushing in the winter, which means we need the case tractor with the loader bucket and probably the wood chipper. So whatever you're gonna figure, you need to add a bare minimum so that fuel's not gelling up, so that things are being kept for that winter activity. I think it's important to keep that in mind when you're talking how many bays and what size to
So
go.
where is that equipment right now?
It's in their shop.
So it's all inside in climate control right now,
Except the new truck,
except the new truck, but we've got the other truck that we're.
gonna keep. At
But
this
it can sit
point,
outside.
at this point, we're gonna,
So you have a spare.
yeah.
But the spare doesn't need to
Well,
be sitting
But
inside.
spare, we'd have a spare with 3 trucks. So when
Well-
the new one shows up, we'd have 4 trucks.
No, you're getting rid of all 5.
Well, that's.
Are we?
Yeah,
I don't know
05.
that, but okay,
But, you know,
But
as
you
far as that
got,
spare.
you gotta figure 3 trucks. I mean, you gotta have 3 trucks. I don't care what
Oh,
you're
yeah,
doing.
you have to have 3 trucks. That's what I mean. When the new truck comes,
okay,
Yeah,
one of the
but
old
3
trucks is gonna go, I thought. I don't think we'll have 4 trucks.
okay.
I agree
don't-
with what Chase is
leaving
going
that up to you
at,
guys.
that I think 5 bays is the way to go. If you're gonna cut space, the Public Works 2,500 square feet is a good place to start. I mean, the bays are there, I mean, use it as cold storage, keep it warm, do the whole bit that way. I mean, who says that 2 years down the road, we might have 4 trucks? And then you're a bay short.
Yeah,
I mean, you put another guy on in the wintertime.
Well, and I'd hate to, in the middle of a snowstorm, have the loader sitting outside under cover,
Absolutely.
even under cover,
Exactly.
and all of a sudden they can't load sand and salt into their truck.
Right.
And that's what I mean,
You
the
know.
square footage of our truck shop now, every proposal we've had has been bigger.
Actually, they're, if you kind of overlay them, they're about the same size. They're really not going any bigger than what we have.
I think what, Josh, you need, they moved that tractor and that loader, they swap it, they put one of them in that cold storage building out back.
Okay.
Well, that,
So you know they're not all fitting in there at one
the
time.
one thing about that though, we haven't had a loader on the one tractor until now. The whole idea of that was so that we could get them out brushing more,
Yeah, I
and
see that.
picking up more. And that's to be honest, that's a fall and winter activity that they should be doing.
Do you know off the top of your head what the square footage is of the current shop right now?
I think it might actually be in here.
I thought it was in there too, I couldn't find it when I was looking earlier.
But the tractor probably, if you maneuvered it right, could go right where the unloader's at,
We could,
sideways. I mean,
Give me
a little
5
bit of
minutes, I got
jockeying
my wheel
around,
with me, I can go
we
back.
could get everything in that building.
yeah.
A little bit of
probably on the assessment details on the
rearranging,
county
we could
page.
get everything in that building right now, I think.
Right, I don't know that we need to go,
Bigger.
the only thing that we could use different than what's in that building is the tool storage, getting that out of the shop area.
Right.
But the size of that building for just the bays, I think is fairly sufficient.
I think they're overly wide and too short, in my opinion.
I would agree, you know, if you got rid of the tools out of there, it'd
It
probably
would
be long
probably-
enough.
right.
You're losing 4 foot on that end.
Yep.
And if you lost that, I mean, give me 2 minutes, I'll go measure it real quick. I got my wheel with me, so all I gotta do is walk the exterior. I'll be right back.
I can measure it on the county page right now if you want me to do
There
that.
you go.
I think it'll be close. It's not gonna be perfect.
So I guess the point I was trying to make is if I spent a day over there and I could get everything that we own in that building. It would be crowded.
In the white one,
Yeah.
in the
In the-
south building. Or are you talking about the
In the
existing?
existing-
The
public
existing
building.
public works.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Like I said, the maneuver on the south end where the payloader sets.
Right.
I mean,
There's enough room for
the
two
tractor
tractors.
was in there before.
There's enough room for 2 tractors next to the road
Right.
right now.
I mean, they parked their
Loader,
trucks in there
buckets,
with
yeah.
everything.
Right. So, I guess I'll get on, maybe cover that a little bit later, but
I got a question on the tool room. Why would you wanna have to run to a special room every time you need a tool?
oh, that was me, that was for
The
security.
closer my tools are to where I'm working,
and I would agree with that. A lot of techs roll their boxes into a secured area when they leave because of different shifts.
correct,
We don't have that here.
correct.
So as long as the building was secured, we wouldn't necessarily need a tool room. But there are plenty of specialty tools that you don't use every day that you would want to put off in that room, you
I
know?
think a lot of that was like the chainsaws, wood
Right.
tools,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
It isn't
Just
just
grind
really
it.
different on-
And that's
It isn't wrenches.
That's a great point.
It isn't wrenches.
Rob brought up,
And
that's chainsaws, weed eaters.
That's
But it's a
exactly
pretty
right.
large, it's a pretty large room.
Cords and
I don't remember what the square
hoses.
footage was.
I don't think 12 by 14, 100 is too much for all of that.
140 square feet.
Hold on, we're gonna go one more.
Because most of that stuff's on a
Alright.
shelf on one side.
Okay.
You got more?
A little bit
No,
bigger.
that's, I'm getting, no.
Rob, those are really good ideas.
If you got more.
I have to use my-
All the public works stuff, the mechanical room, which is the furnace, the parts room is in the entry area, the break room, the tool area, the uniforms, the restroom, and their office add up to 784 square feet. So those are that's a necessity. What we wanna add to that for buildings, if we're keeping that old building and there's no reason we can't store our some snow plowing equipment in there, I don't know. I don't know about.
Well, how long are we thinking that old building is gonna be usable?
They said 5 years.
Well, that's,
No, that's color.
well, that is
That's
them,
true.
but, I mean, that building is in really rough shape.
It is.
If you
Yeah.
take off the panels on the inside, you'll see the corrosion and the bent
I mean, I,
structural.
we gotta look at how long we expect that to be
Of course.
even usable if we're even thinking about keeping that out.
Well, your big thing is your truck's sitting there and they wash them off in there and then the drain goes
Well, yeah, we have no.
nowhere.
I was in the shop the other day and I kicked one of the supports on the wall and I regretted it when I did. I was whoa. Like I didn't realize that was gonna happen. But I mean, it's in rough shape. Yeah, it'll probably stand another 5 years.
You know, the thing is though, our big thing here was clean water. I mean, we fought for years about water. It takes one drop of oil to pollute a mile. And here we're running, I mean, the oil comes off the tires. I don't know if anybody knows that. Asphalt is made of oil. So when you park a truck and you wash it, that water comes full of oil and it's going down into our groundwater.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it that way, that's kind of a no-no for us in
Hydraulic
particular.
leaks, yeah.
Yeah,
So when
General consensus would be that the truck shop should be what it is, and I guess if we go down that road, we should entertain the thought that we should maybe make that into a voting area somehow.
it'll definitely be big enough. So if we leave, I work in a shop, I don't ever wanna make a shop smaller. So if we leave the garage at 5,000 and you do your essential 784, that's
That's
5784.
But that's in there.
Alan, Josh, I just did a quick measurement on Google Earth.
5,400, 5,200.
I got 5,200.
Yeah, I did it like 3 times. It made me put, I was trying to get that in. So
5211, but
for the
I don't
current,
know exactly where
the current
heaves
public works.
come out. That's-
So I just did something quick. 5784 is what I come up with. At 250 a square foot is 1.44 million,
Yep.
So
which
if
is
we don't-
significantly smaller than 3.2.
Oh, and you can, and with the money that we know is coming in from the solar, if you want to reverse calculate 75% of that allocated to that amount of debt, I mean, I can show it side by side. I mean, there'll be a real benefit to a phase,
It's,
doing a phase 1 and a phase 2.
now, can I ask you, if we get to that point and 5 years down the road, we want to do a phase 2 and get the rest of it done, and we don't have that all paid off, can we refinance at that point? And
I
roll
can't,
that
I can't speak to what other firms and financial institutions would do. I don't know. But what I with 100% confidence, there would be no barrier. The worst thing you would have is an additional $500 filing fee for a new municipal loan at the institution I work at. Otherwise, you'd have almost no, the slight inconvenience of touching the loan again and having people sign new documentation. But timing wise, there's a little interest rate risk up or down, right? Sometimes that can work to your benefit, sometimes that can work to your disadvantage. But no, the short answer is there's not a reason to be afraid of doing it in phases from a financing perspective. In the experiences I've had over a variety of municipal loans, it can be really, the savings from interest alone will offset that tenfold, if not more.
Would there be anything about a construction loan or is it just a straight
If these are good,
construction loan during construction and then real
I
typical
would
mortgage
be
after
comfortable
that?
with up to 24 months of interest-only payments typically made monthly, sometimes quarterly, sometimes annually. It depends on the needs of the town, but 2 years effectively for the project. Now this, phase one, which shouldn't take 2 years to build a shop, but you can still strategically finance it to have that window of stabilization where you're only paying interest for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months before it moves into principal and interest payments. And you can always prepay with what I'm familiar with, not with there's other programs out there that would never allow that because they want to squeeze you for the interest over time. But you'd be able to, if you wanted to start making principal payments at 6 months, you could do that. The longer you go interest only, the longer that's dragging that cost out, obviously. Like with even, so I wouldn't advise having a really long interest only period, but suitable.
But it would be a draw type of situation.
Yep, and you're only paying interest
You
now.
only pay interest on what you draw.
Yeah, interest on what your loan
What you're using. Yep.
draw out is. Right.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to say something here. I did contact to get a financial advice. I went to the county, to their financial department, and actually had a really good conversation, and that's where using 75% was a very comfortable amount of this solar money, because they're actually utilizing all of it before they even got it. But anyway, in doing that, I also checked on grants, because I know there are people out there that think that grants are the end-all be-all, but for a municipality our size, 5,000 is a really bad number for a population, because either you don't qualify or you do qualify, but then there's a lot of red tape for those qualifications. And one of the biggest red tape items was to have somebody on site daily. And if you hire an inspector on site, you can bet you that's going to be at least $100,000 a year to pay that one person. So, and the interest rate was 5%. No matter what loan I was looking at for a grant, it was 5% repaying. And when I went to the bank matched it, and it's local. And we don't have to have someone on site. We have the state building inspectors that will come in and inspect. And also I'm here. So all of those things together just made financial and sense to me to stay local. So I just wanted everyone to know how I determined that.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or do you have more you want to talk about first?
Um,
I was just gonna kind of bring this full circle. You know, our goal here tonight was to be able to supply color with guidance on, originally it was the hall, and now we've kind of focused on maybe going a phase. Do we need to, as a group, I mean, I'm not sure what the next step is. Do we as a group, do we need to vote? Do we need to agree? Do we need to have more discussion about, do we want to pursue this more on a phase situation? And that's what we go back to color with, like, okay, we decided maybe we're gonna go with the phase option and we wanna start with Public Works. Can you look at Public Works with voting, Public Works without voting? And this is what our voting population is. How big of a size would we need added onto that building to accommodate voting? I mean, kind of bringing it back full circle, that is our mission tonight, is to give color guidance on, what we want from them.
correct.
So,
I knew you weren't going to be there, Christy, so I did take notes so that when Keller comes in, I can address those items to him, and
awesome.
You'll be able to get your answers.
Excellent. Thank you.
So to answer your question, yes, I had a lot more I wanted to say.
Good.
But when Keller was first brought in, they were given a couple of notepads full of wants. Like, this is what we want. What can you do? And the first time they came in, they had this big, huge plan, and the whole property was covered in buildings, and they were all brand new, and they were great. They were perfect. That was way out of our price range. We pulled them back, said, no, we can't do that. So they came with some more options, or one or two options, and we're slowly getting it narrowed down to where we want. And we're at a point right now where we can tell them where to start cutting the buildings here, cutting the buildings there. So we're on track for where we need to be. And this discussion tonight is great. We do have to give them direction before our next, I think when they come back next, they said they were gonna bring some numbers with of what they anticipated for tear down. If we did, like I'm thinking 3 or 4 different options, right? For money, for the amount of, it was gonna cost to do certain things. So, I think at that meeting, we can say, okay, now maybe we wanna consider a smaller administrative or meeting room or something like that. I love the phases. I think our priority is the truck shop because it's deteriorating the fastest. I do agree that I want all the roads fixed too.
Right.
And the public obviously wants the roads fixed, but the public has no idea what our public works department looks like either. So, because we know both, we gotta help balance that a little bit, right? So, voting goes smoothly with the space we have right now, but it could be smaller. Like I said, I've seen municipalities bigger than this voting in rooms like this. It's not good for residents, and I don't ever want to see that here, but we could get away with a smaller area, I think, which is gonna save money in the long run. Maybe a new truck shop with enough space for storing voting equipment. I think if we build a shop, we should build it up to code where we can have the public in there. I don't know how much more that costs, but I didn't realize that like Grand Rapids is grandfathered in as far as having the people.
Yeah,
in
once
that
you build a building, the year that you build it, it's grandfathered until you make changes.
So and I didn't take that into consideration. So I don't know how much more we'd have to put into that building as far as money to get it to where we could vote in it. But I think if that amount of space is there for the equipment storage or to work in the shop, why can't we
Utilize it.
Yeah,
Dual.
multi-use or whatever, for the 4 times a year that we're voting, I'll come and pull those trucks out and sweep the floor and make it to where it's presentable,
It's a new building, the floors better be swept.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. So,
Daily.
we have 2 solar projects, or we're going to have 2 solar projects.
Right.
One of them we've already I believe we've already said that we want to fix the roads with.
All the money goes to the roads.
So we have one solar project, we're already fixing the roads. And we already have that plan to keep the roads fixed. We also need to keep up on the rest of our infrastructure too. And with 2 projects, this is the best time to do it. Because we're never gonna have 2 projects like this where we have the money coming in from each one without affecting our residents is too much or hopefully at all, That would be like the first phase, that new truck shop, get our public works where it needs to be. And then phase 2 would be an addition to the current administrative building, to accommodate, our EMS, our records rooms, miscellaneous storage, a smaller conference room. We can have most of our town board meetings in a room smaller than this. And we fill it sometimes, There are some meetings where we